Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to social science class. Yesterday's session, we are actually start to discuss about the new and old terminologies. The new and old terminologies. So, especially, we came to know that the meaning of the word. So, it is so differ. So, one age to another age. For example, the meaning of the word in the same language, so it may differ, it may vary, or it may change, which used in ancient time, that word meaning it may different in the medieval time or in a modern time. And also, so that is I mean that is about the person how is going to focus on that particular thing. Okay. So yesterday I told that the medieval Persian language it is so differ compared to the modern Persian language. So the medieval Persian and then modern Persian. See, this is not only about the grammar and vocabulary. So this is also actually the meaning of the word. So also change over the time. Then previous class I told. So what we are using the word today Hindustan. Hindustan. So the present Hindustan. So it indicates and we can come to know that. So for India, this is the modern state. Modern state. See, this word Hindustan, so when it was used in a different centuries, so it has the different, it's covered the different name. For example, in a 13th century, I'm talking about 13th century. See, in this 13th century, one of the chronicler or historian, whose name was Minhaj I Siraj. Minhaj I Siraj. See, he was one of the 13th century's chronicler. So, according to Minhaj during 13th century, the meaning of Hindustan means it is only about. So actually, Minhaj Siraj he was one of the scholar of or the chronicler in the Persian language during 13th century. See, he mean the areas of Punjab, Haryana, and the lands between Ganga and Yamuna. So only this much of area. Hindustan means so now what we are now presently looking India as one of the modern state, Kanyakumari to Kashmir, Kanyakumari to Kashmir. So now or West Bengal to the Gujarat. So it is only about. So it is covering. So Punjab, Haryana, and the lands between Ganga and Yamuna river. Only that's much. Only that's much. So Punjab, what you can see the present Punjab, Haryana, and the lands between Ganga and Yamuna. Only this much. Are you getting now? So during 13th century, according to Minhaj Siraj, he was one of the Persian chronicler. So he meant the areas of Punjab, Haryana, and the lands between Ganga and Yamuna, so only that's much. See, Minhas Siraz he used the term in a political sense, for lands that were a part of, especially the dominions of the Delhi Sultan. Whatever the part of the, especially, actually, just you can try to understand. So, he used this term in this term, this much of area. Actually, these areas, Punjab, Haryana, and the lands between Ganga and river. So, during that time, so it was actually the dominions of the Delhi Sultan. So it was very clear that, so this is what actually how it was seen about the Hindustan. So it is clear. It's actually a political sense for lands that were a part of the dominions of the Delhi Sultan. See, the areas included in this term shifted with the extent of the Sultanate, but the term never included South India. Hindustan means only this much. It's not included South India. And by contrast, so we'll come to the in the early 16th century. So this I'm talking about. I mean the 13th century. Now in early 16th century. Now we are see early 16th century. One of the king, you all of you knows that. So the Barber, according to Barber, this is about 13th century. According to the Persian chronicler Minhas Siraj. And now we are going to discuss about early 16th century according to Barber. See, here the Barber he was used the term Hindustan to describe the geography, the fauna, and the culture of the inhabitants of subcontinent. So, according to Barber, the Barber used this term in Hindustan. Okay, for what he was used this term? So, the Barber he was used this term to describe especially the geography, the fauna, and the culture of the inhabitants of the subcontinent. And as if you are looking, according to one of the famous poet Amir Khusraw. So in 14th century, in 14th century, so during 14th century, the poet Amir Khusraw, so he was used the word Hind. He was used the word Hind. See, while the idea of geographical and cultural entity like India did exist, and the term Hindustan did not carry the political and national meanings which we associated with it today. So that means the term Hindustan it was used in different centuries by the different scholars or the historians or the chroniclers or the writers in a different way. What we are understanding, what we are knowing, or how we are using the term Hindustan in the present days, or the meaning of this, especially how it is in the present associated with today. So, not like that way. Are you getting now? See, the Hindustan in 13th century, according to Minhas Siras, he was one of the Persian chronicler. So, it was used in the, especially in a political sense. According to the Minhas Siras, it's covered only the Punjab, Haryana and lands between Ganga and Yamuna River, which are the dominions of the Delhi Sultan. And during early 16th century, the Barber, so he was used this term Hindustan to describe the geography and the fauna and also the culture of inhabitant of the subcontinent. And during 14th century, one of the famous poet Amir Khusro, so he was used this term Hind. So while the idea of a geographical and culturally entity like India did exist. See, the term Hindustan did not carry the political and national meanings which we associated with it today. Associated with it today. See, historians today they have to be very careful about the terms they use because they meant different things in the past. Whoever it may be, today's historians or today if anybody they who are going to write or create a history of any dynasty or country or whatever it may be, so the historians today have to be very careful because it is like that in a different centuries the same terms gives the different meanings according to their view. You see these three examples according to Minhas Siraz, according to Barber and according to Hamir Kusa. So that's what, dear students, the historians must, I mean the present days, they must be careful about the terms they are used because they mean different things in the past. Different things or different meanings in the past. For example, one more example we are going to discuss now. The term what we are using foreigner. What we are using nowadays foreigner. Foreigner. See, it is using today to mean someone who is not an Indian. So for that, I mean, for those people we used to call, or for those persons we used to call as a foreigners. Especially someone who is not an Indian. ವಿದೇಶಿಯರು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳ. Foreigner means ವಿದೇಶಿಯರು. Who is not belongs to our country. Who is not a citizen of our country. So this is what the present mean. For example, those who are coming from different countries, those who are visiting now. So for those people we used to call as a foreigners. Are you getting now? So this is what the today's meaning of foreigner. Those who are someone who are not an Indians. ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇರೋರು ವಿದೇಶದಿಂದ ಬಂದವರನ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ದೇಶಗಳಿಂದ ಬಂದಂತಹವರನ್ನ ನಾವು ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರನ್ನ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಅವರನ್ನ ವಿದೇಶಿಯರು ಅಥವಾ we used to call as a foreigner. Those who are not citizens of our country. those who are not belongs to our country. So who is not an Indian? Who is not an Indian? So for them we used to call as a foreigner. See, this is the present meaning of the foreigner. So let us go back to the medieval period. Let us go back to the medieval period. See, in the medieval period, a foreigner means who was any stranger, was any stranger who appeared, say, in a given village. Who appeared, say, in a given village. That means during medieval period, whoever it may be, maybe they belongs to the same region or the same state or the same physical area. So, but is a stranger. ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಅಪರಿಚಿತರು ಪರಿಚಿತ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇದ್ದಂತಹ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗಳನ್ನು ಕಂಡ್ರೆ ಸೊ ಅವರನ್ನ ಫಾರಿನರ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಮಿಡಿವಲ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕರೀತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಮಕ್ಕಳ. ಸೊ ಇಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ನೌ? ಸೊ ದ ಪರ್ಸನ್ was especially during medieval period for a strangers so who appeared for them used to call as a foreigner. See, someone who was not a part of that society or culture. The person, he may not belongs to that particular society or he may not practicing the same culture. Are you getting now? See, actually in Hindi, the term foreigner, that means pardeshi. So Indianalli ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ foreigners ಅನ್ನ pardeshi. So this pardeshi might be used to describe such a person and in Persian language it's called as ajnabi. So I am talking about medieval period. So in Hindi used to called as a Pardesi and even in Persian it's used to called as a Aznabi. See, a city dweller, one more example, a city dweller, the person during medieval period who was living in a towns, so therefore might have regarded a forest dweller as a foreigner. Or the city dweller or the village settlers. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪಟ್ಟಣ ವಾಸಿಗಳು ಮತ್ತೆ ಆದಿವಾಸಿಗಳು ಅಥವಾ ಕಾಡಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಜನಗಳು ಅವರು ಫಾರಿನರ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಇವರಿಗೆ ಅವ್ರು ಫಾರಿನರ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಹಳ್ಳಿನಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಜನಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವರು ಪಟ್ಟಣದಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಜನಗಳು ಫಾರಿನರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಂಡು ಬರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ದೋಸ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ಮಿಡಿವಲ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ದೇ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ ಪರ್ದೇಸಿ. Paradesi in Hindi and in Persian language Ajnabi. See, suppose the two peasants living in the same village were not foreigners to each other. In this example, suppose there are two persons, so there are two peasants. Okay, so they are living in a same village, so they were not foreigners to each other. So even though they may have had different religious or caste backgrounds, so it is very clear that what we are using the word or the term in the present days foreigner, so that gives a different meanings. Who is not an Indian? But during medieval period, if we are going to discuss or if we are going to study about the same term foreigner, so that gives different meanings. So according to the medieval period, foreigner means he was any stranger who was appearing in that village or physical region, and someone who was not a part of the society or the culture. So during medieval period, so those people used to call as in Hindi Pardesi, and in Persian language they used to call as a Aznabi. So here, a city dweller and a village settler or forest dweller, so they are actually became the foreigners to each other, for to each other. But suppose the peasants in a village, two or more than two more, so the peasants, if they are living in the same village, so they were not foreigners, they were not foreigners to each other. So even though they may have different culture or different religious background or different, they may belong to the different caste also. So please try to understand that the meaning while using, especially the historians, they must be very careful, because whatever they are studying or whatever they are going to create the past, whether they are going to write or create history, so the historians or the scholars, they must be very careful about the use of these different terms from the past. ಸೊ ಇಂದಿನ ಕಾಲದ ಅಥವಾ ಗತಕಾಲದ ಇತಿಹಾಸವನ್ನು ಬರೀಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದಂತಹ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಇತಿಹಾಸಕಾರರಿಗೆ, ಚರಿತ್ರಾಕಾರರಿಗೆ, ವಿದ್ವಾಂಸರಿಗೆ ಸೊ ಅವರು ಬಹಳ ಎಚ್ಚರಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ವಹಿಸಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಏನು ಇವತ್ತಿನ ದಿನ ನಾವು ಬಳಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಆ ಅರ್ಥವನ್ನ ಆ ಪದಗಳು ಅಥವಾ ಆ ವರ್ಡ್ಗಳು ಕೊಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಇಂದಿನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದರ ಅರ್ಥನೇ ಬೇರೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So that's what. So the historians, they must be very careful. This is what we are going to learn in this topic under the old and new terminologies. And let us discuss about historians and their sources. Historians and their sources. Historians and their sources. See, dear students, to construct a history, we all of you knows that. So the historians required a lot of informations or sources. So by using those the different sources, so they are going to construct the history, or they are going to write or create the history. See, to construct a house, we required so many materials. So without sources, we cannot plan, we cannot construct. Especially water we required, land we required, so bricks, iron, and even the sand, even the cement, even the labors, even more than this. So the investment or the amount also very essential. So these are the essential to construct a house. Okay, plan and so on, so things. See, the same way, if the historians, if they are going to create a history, or if they start to write a history of any period or any dynasty or any king or any situation or any events, so they require sources. So if there is no sources, then it's not possible to create a history, or it's not possible to write a history. See, because of this, the historians use different types of sources to learn more about the past, depending upon the period of their study and the nature of their investigations. See, they were using the different types of resources to learn about the past. So it's completely depending upon the period of their history, and also the nature of their investigation. The nature of their investigation. I think last year we all of us studied about the Gupta dynasty and even the Harshavardhana and so on and so forth. See, actually, in this academic year, so we are following and we are going to learn 700 to already in the previous session also I told, so 1750 years. So between these 1,000 years we are going to follow this 1,000 years. See here some continuity in the sources used by the historians for the study of this period. We are talking about between 700 CE to 1750 CE. So this is what the continuity in the sources used by historians for the study of these 1,000 years, 700 to 1750, and they still rely on, so because without all those, whatever it may be, the different types of resources, so they still rely on coins, inscriptions, architecture, and even the textual records also to get information of information. So the historians, those who are in this period, for to write or to create this 1,000 years, so they are still rely on coins also, inscriptions also, architectures also, and even textual records also to get more information. But there is also considerable discontinuity. Even though there we can see the considerable discontinuity. Why? Because now the number of variety of textual records, the number of and variety of textual records increased dramatically in this period. So dramatically what happened during this period? So the variety of textual records are produced. So that's what. So this is also very challenging to the historians. See, they slowly displaced other types of available information. And through this period, the another one important thing, that is about the paper gradually became cheaper. The paper, and even the papers are more widely available. So people used it to write holy texts, chronicles of rulers or kings, and so on, so things, and even the letters, and even the teachings of saints, and also petitions and judicial records. Are you getting now? So here the people, they were start to use it during this period, because in this period the paper gradually became very cheaper and more widely available. So the paper was used for to write holy texts, chronicles of rulers and dynasties and kings, and letters also, and teachings of saints also, petitions also, and even judicial records also, and for registers of accounts and taxes. They were start to maintain the accounts and the details of taxes. And also manuscripts were collected by wealthy people. Manuscripts are collected by wealthy people, rich people, high class people, and the noble class people, and also rulers, monasteries, and temples. See, they were placed in libraries and archives during this time. So, the manuscripts were collected by the wealthy people, rulers, monasteries, and temples, and they were placed in libraries and archives. Okay. See, these manuscripts and documents provide a lot of detailed information to historians. A lot of manuscripts, lot of textual documents. So these lot of manuscripts and then textual documents provide a lot of detailed information to historians, but they are also difficult to use. They are also difficult to use. So I hope you are understanding whatever I am explaining in this class. Okay, and regarding this, still more information. So I would like to explain in the next class. Thank you. Have a nice day.